like to say welcome to our viewing audience, as well as the people here in beautiful Honolulu. In fact, we're in Waikiki at the wonderful Hyatt Regency Hotel. And this is part 2 of our 2-part series on the art of selling art. Specifically, we're going to go over some follow-up techniques and strategies. They're going to be very significant and important for all of you who want to harvest repeat business and make the most of the prospects, the qualified prospects that you're introduced to throughout your career. All right, what we're really going to be talking about is how to develop a client base. Do you know that I have people in this business after 12 to 24 months that they really and truly could survive quite nicely without being on the floor? Do you believe that? I bet you know some of those folks who are successful. And that's something, in fact, I want to encourage each and every one of you to strive towards and look at the floor as a renewal for prospects, the opportunity to obtain referrals, as well as, of course, get a certain amount of business from that. But to look at the floor more as a renewal and an opportunity to upgrade those top 200 or those top 500, whatever level you're comfortable dealing with as an art consultant, clients. So in other words, initially the 200 might have an average invoice of X thousand. Well, in 3 years from now, you still may only manage 200 or 500, whatever it is for you, but the average invoice might be double or triple that as you give away some of the other clients who can't really be upgraded to those higher levels. So that has to be the strategy, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So to our viewing audience, I'll be alerting you to the exercises we're going to be experiencing here in the room, and you'll want to do those at home or at the gallery, wherever you are taking advantage of this tutorial. And we're going to be doing that right here this afternoon. Does that seem like a good use of our time? Yes. All right. We've had some lively discussion up to now, and so let me just orient my viewing audience who may be just tuning in to this tape. The entire 2-part series covers the 3 sections, the key steps of selling, which we have elaborated on fully today. Isn't that true, folks? Yep. Talked about everything from handling objections to the proper way to greet, the proper way to handle yourself in the demo room. And if you view that tape 1, you'll be able to take advantage of those insights as well. Now we're switching gears into specific selling strategies, and we'll be closing out with build passion with romance, which is my way of saying how to create an effective sales presentation. But I just like to talk funny, so. All right, here we go. In this particular portion, we're going to be talking about qualifying to some extent. I'll be talking briefly about the hierarchy of commitment, and even more briefly about fine-tuning your closes. I'll be making references, just so everyone is clear, to some things that are written in our workbooks, and for those of you who might take advantage of the published book by the same title. We're actually going to spend the vast majority of our time on number 4, follow up, follow through. And in a couple of words, what are we speaking about? What is follow up? What is it?
Phone calls.
Phone calls. And what else might it involve, Ruth? Direct mail and phone. Absolutely. All right. I think you'll be really excited with the kind of results you can get from that. All right. When I talk about fine-tuning our, qualifying our clients, what kinds of things did we discuss earlier, I think when the camera was off, kind of in summary? What were the 2 basic ways we qualify people? Does anyone remember?
Desire and...
Desire, or what I call the motivation profile. How much they love it. What else? Their ability to spend. Their motivation, their desire, and their ability to spend. And within that, and that's where Rose is on target, the travel profile, questions about where they've been and where they're going, and secondarily what I call their back home profile, which has to do with their profession, their actual primary residence, their office, and descriptions and understanding of all of that. Okay. At this point, I want to just talk about the hierarchy of commitment. You know, remember I said that there were 3 outcomes when all was said and done, when you follow these techniques faithfully. One was you're going to sell it now, sell it later, or find out the God's honest truth, why not? Well, here's a strategy for you, a hierarchy, if you will, so that when you ask people for a commitment, a close, you have something to shoot for besides just selling it now, so that you can start to feel a sense of success with this. Are you with me? Because what did we say earlier? Nothing works 100% of the time. I just want to fill your toolbox so that you have an arsenal of things, a menu of things, if you will, to share with your clients every day, every moment as things come up, to make the most of every opportunity. Well, this is part of that. Whenever you're dealing with a client and you're going for the close, remember, if you don't get cash or credit in full could be your internal financing, it could be their Visa, it could be their Platinum card, then you can always acquiesce to layaway. You can always acquiesce to a hold. Are these levels of commitment that make it increase your likelihood of the final outcome? Cash or credit? Yes, absolutely. And what about name, address and phone number, and permission to contact while they're here if it's a convention center or a resort town? Is that a level of commitment? If they say, sure, you can call me tomorrow at the hotel to see how I'm feeling. Of course it is. And if they say, no, 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 so, well, at the very least, when do you get home? Would it be all right if I contact you next week then? Or should I wait a few days until you get settled back in? Is that a level of commitment? Absolutely. What do we say? If a person is not willing to spend time with you, then they're not willing to spend money with you. And the converse is true. All right, keep that in mind. You know, I spend time in galleries all the time, and I can't tell you the number of times I see a qualified person walk out the door, very interested, very excited, and we didn't even get this: name, address, and phone number. Now, and permission to recontact. Now let me ask you something. Even if you have the name and address and phone number, but no permission to recontact, is that very effective? Yes or no?
Not really.
Well, let me put it like this. Have I told you my Robert Redford story?
No, tell us.
Robert, if you're out there listening, I've never met you, but I know one day I will. Only because you're an artist, and I know one day you're going to open up an art gallery. You may as well call me, and I'd love to work for you. But in any event, I'm married though, so don't take that personally. But my Robert Redford story is basically this: Robert Redford walks into the gallery, and you don't have to qualify him, do you? Does he have the ability to spend, yes or no? Yes. You say, Robert, is that right if I call you Robert? Oh, great. Well, actually, I should. Mr. Redford, how are you? Listen, do you like our art here? Oh, I love it. Really? Well, which ones do you love? This one, this one, this one, that one. Are you getting excited? Well, great. Well, let me share with a little bit about the artist and about our gallery, and on and on and on. You have a little then all of a sudden, Robert Redford looks at his watch. Up he goes. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I've got to go pick up. Well, I guess he was married for a while, but his significant other at this point. And I'm sorry, I got to run. Doggone, I tell you, I want those 5, though, for sure. Mr. Redford runs out the door, and you go, oh, okay, well, I'll see you after dinner then? Yeah, we'll stop by after dinner. And then he doesn't come. And by the way, that's true of all of these folks, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Do they come back? Well, what do? You know the man's name. You know he's well qualified. So you feel like it's worthwhile following up, yes? Even if you didn't, even if his card fell out of his wallet on the floor behind him, Let's say that happened, and there you have his card. When you call up, and you, of course, contact the intermediate person, the larger the stature, the greater the wealth, the more intermediaries there are. Yes? So you hit the intermediary. It's an assistant, it's a whomever, right? What do you say? Well, hello. This is Zella from XYZ Gallery, and Mr. Redford had expressed an interest in some artwork, and I wanted to see if I could sell him some. I mean, what do you say? You know, ring, ring, you know, this is Robert Redford Studios, whatever. Yes, this is Zella from XYZ Galleries. Oh, well, he's busy right now. What do you say? Are you with me? What has really been accomplished? Nothing. Now, same scenario. He's running out the door. Remember how I show you? We run after people. So, well, Mr. Redford, by the way, is it all right if I call you Robert? Yes, it is. Robert, listen, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Listen, if you can't come back after dinner this evening, would it be all right if I call you when you get back in town? When do you get back in town? Oh, next week. Sure, call me. In fact, I have your card. I'm going to send you something just so it's right fresh for you, and perhaps we can ship those out to you when you're back at home, okay? Okay, sure, we'll talk about it, no problem. Now you call. It goes more like this. Ring, ring. Hello. Is Robert in? Yes, he is. Does he know what this is in regards to? Oh, yes. He encouraged me to call him. We just chatted. Here in Hawaii. It was just marvelous, and he just couldn't wait to hear from me. And anyway, is he in, or should I call back at a time that's more convenient? Well, yeah, he's in right now. Let me see if he's available. Oh, okay. Robert, this is Zella. How you doing? I'm fine. Well, listen, I got those 5 pieces all packaged and set to ship out to you. The total is, just wanted to find out if you want to put on your platinum card or how you want to take care of it. Well, what? I can't believe it. You remembered to call me. Well, of course, Robert. In fact, this is only the beginning. In fact, I was thinking about bringing them with me. And I had a trip planned to your area. And I was wondering if it might be worthwhile for me to stop by your home and help you hang them up. What do you think? Now, if you think I'm pulling your leg on that one, think again. How many of you had people in your gallery, if not yourself, use this very technique? Kevin, George, Gail. It works, ladies and gentlemen. It works. It really works. And what was the key? Yes. In fact, I'm going to direct Patrick over to my guidelines. And those of you who are taking notes, including our viewing audience, you want to write this down, because it is the foundation for everything I'm going to be sharing with you about direct mail and phone. First of all, everything is fantastic with your clients and prospects. We're talking about a relationship that is rather unique and unusual. We're talking about something that every time they hear your voice, they get excited. They get happy, because every experience they have with you is upbeat. You follow through with your commitments. You're honest. You're forthright with them. And you make good on every commitment. Everything is fantastic. Even when they share a concern. Well, Zella, I don't think it's going to fit. You say, well, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with me. Well, Zella, I just don't know if I can swing it right now. Fantastic. I just want you to be comfortable, right, Ruth? I just want you to be comfortable, because I'm not here just to make this sale. I want you as a client for life. Everything is fantastic. Number 2, clients will agree to just about anything, as long as it's reasonable, ahead of time. I want you to make time your ally instead of your enemy. Clients will agree to just about anything ahead of time. You notice how I got Robert to agree to let me call him in case he didn't make it back? They'll agree to just about. You know what? The higher the stature, the greater the net worth, the more you must use this technique to your advantage. You know, I've made appointments with important people 6 months in advance. Has anyone here ever done that? Absolutely. Okay. Every time you disengage, you establish the basis for the next contact, just like I did with Robert. If you're out there, Robert, I hope you don't mind. You're a celebrity. What the heck? And number 4, the more specific you are with number 3, the better the result. So it's not about, well, let's stay in touch. It's not about that. It's, well, you know what it sounds to me like? The next time we talk, or the next time I see you, we need to explore. The Caroline Young show is coming up, or the Hisashi Otsuka show is coming up, or whatever it is. And we're going to have an extraordinary repertoire of pieces for you to select from. Why don't I go ahead, send you a note in the mail to remind you of it, and then you're going to make your plane reservations at least 45 days in advance so you can be here for it. And I like to pre-select a few things just to make sure that that something is special is really here, that we can preview the night before. And if I can have your platinum card number, I can, make sure I can have those set aside for you, okay? Now, more specific you are, the better. Now, granted, I gave you a very, very specific case, and it would vary depending on who you're talking to and the circumstances. And if you don't think people do that all the way to the end, I want you to think again. Don't they? Platinum card numbers had best be on file. You know you can buy a car with a platinum card? Did you know that? A friend of mine told me that her boyfriend bought her one on his platinum card. Trying to impress, and he sure did. All right. Well, this other thing I want to talk about briefly are key words that will up-level your verbal presentation. This is verbal, for those of you taking notes. And in the workbook, we are now on page 2-3. And I talk about this in my book, too, for my viewing audience. Basically, verbal presentation is what I'm speaking about, because print, we're finding, for example, is very acceptable in writing. But when it comes down to the verbal presentation, I just want to share with you, it's best to talk about it as specifically as possible. A mixed media graphic. This piece is a combination lithography, serography, or graphic. Please don't use picture. Anybody here uses the word picture? Please don't. You're talking about furniture art, right? Furniture store art, I should say. It's an image, it's a painting. I can't wait for you to purchase this. I can't wait for you to own this, acquire this. Doesn't it change the whole sound of it, the ring of it? I can't wait for you to buy this. When you own this, it is just going to change your life. I'm going to make you a deal that I tell you, it's going to knock your socks off. I think we can come to an agreement. Or I feel I can make you an offer. Makes it entirely different, doesn't it? The price for this is, the investment level for this piece is, by the way, I define investment level, so at the time I use this verbally. By the way, here's one you want to start. Never use the word investment in writing. There are very few nevers and always in the world, but never use the word investment in writing. And this is just a tip because of all the difficulties and problems they're having right now in rewriting the laws at various states on art acquisitions and what is in fact a quote-unquote investment or can be said to be an investment. Got it? Just a hot tip from CJ. But when I use this term, I liken it to a person's primary residence. I say, you make an investment in your home, an investment in your family, and they relate to me on that. Most people today do not buy their primary residence to sell it for profit, do they? No. Maybe in a few isolated pockets in the country, but by and large, most people buy their primary residence to make a home, to create family traditions. In fact, it's actually more so today than ever before if you follow the literature on it, on the movements. People are cocooning. They're bringing back architectural detail into their homes. They're bringing art and other fine collectibles into their home more and more. In the 90s is supposedly the whole trend. So I use it in that term, in that vein. And I say, I can't wait for you to pay for this. How did you want to take care of this? Boy, do you guys, do we give discounts? Of course we give discounts. How can you stay in business around here without discounts? Rather than say, well, I think we can make some arrangements that would be mutually beneficial to all of us. All right, let me take you in the closing room. Or is this the closing room? You say, well, let's go see it in a better place. And this is a Gary Smithism. Gary, if you're out there, thank you. Let's take it to a better place. All right. Okay. With that, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and talk about the importance of follow-up. And I've got some worksheets I'm going to have my team here in the room fill out, and then we'll come back to the viewing audience in just a moment to recap some of the things we're going to discover together. So we'll be right back. I'd like to say welcome back to our viewing audience, and of course those of you who are here. We had an incredible experience. I tell you why you were gone. Our teams wrote actual letters. We took a look at them, and I have to say I was actually very pleased with some of the results. We did a show. We did a direct communique for a corporate art sale. We did a semi-personal direct mail, and I guess 2 semi-direct personal mail outs. So let's talk about some of these results that we've achieved in such a way that you can replicate that and produce direct mail campaigns that work for you. How does that sound? Good use of our time? Great. All right, first of all, let me turn your attention to what it is we're trying to do. Number one, when we do this, direct mail and phone follow-up, by the way, you notice those two go together, kind of like dreams and vivid goals all together. Let me make a point about that before I go on, as a matter of fact. Why, for us, do I insist that direct mail and phone go together? When you get a direct mail piece from American Express, do they call you? Yes or no? No. Why don't they call you? If this is so important, the phone. Why don't they call you? I don't know. It's the end of the day. I'm bunchy. That lunch was good, I want you to know. You guys really missed out. Come on now. Why don't they phone us? Say that louder, TG. Oh, I think they care all right. But as a good guest at this late afternoon, this is it. And you may want to write this down, ladies and gentlemen. When you do direct mail without phoning, any marketing book will tell you this. The anticipated result is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1/2 of 1% and 1.5%. Now, my next question is, typically, most art consultants are going to do mailings to how many people? Can I say between 200 and 500? I think that's pretty typical in all of my experiences. There's some people who have larger mailing lists, but they have an assistant and they do a combination of direct mail and phone follow. But the people that they phone range between 200 and 500 for a major event or show, a major release, that sort of thing. I think that's a fair statement. Now, what's 1/2 of 1% of 200 people? I mean, it's not something you want to hang your hat on, is it? Now, when we do phoning, what do you think starts to happen? It goes up to what? Does anybody know? 20. In fact, I want you to write this down. Instead of 1/2 of 1%, you can expect, ladies and gentlemen, a return of anywhere from 10, 20, 30, and I'll even go so far as to share with you a statistic one of my senior art consultants told me recently. In fact, not just one, but many of them over the course of the year share this with me. They can do a mailing and expect half of the people to acquire something. Half of them. So what are we talking about? A strategy that looks something like this. At first, you got lots and lots of prospects, very few prior buyers. And then over a course of 12 or 24 months, you have more and more prior buyers and fewer prospects. And over the course of another 12 or 24 months, all of the prior buyers are very well qualified, and the average invoice is going higher and higher. And so first you're doing lots of prospecting, so you're getting the lower return. Later you're doing fewer letters and getting a greater return. Do you see how that works? And that's got to be the goal, got to be the strategy. And in so doing, with this direct mail and phone campaign, we can accomplish a number of things. Number one is expand our market. Phew. Oh my gosh. Especially in resort towns and places that are remote. I'm talking about a span of influence around the world. It's so nice because people come to you. We can obtain repeat business on just like clockwork. We can improve our client satisfaction. We can cultivate client loyalty. Do you know that there are people, first of all, in Hawaii at first when I was talking about this, they said, Zella, you have us confused with somebody else. We can't invite people to a show. They're not going to fly out here. Well, guess what? I think one of the best examples of people flying out for shows is the one-man Hisashi Otsuka show every year, the day after Christmas. And you know the first year they gave that? I don't think more than a handful of people flew out for it. But now we're into, what, our 8th year, if I'm not mistaken, coming up this day after Christmas? And I don't know about this year. I'm sure it's going to be better, even better than last year. But last year, we had people flying from all over the world to come to this event. Isn't that incredible? I think it's marvelous. Not to mention the Von Maritime folks. My goodness, I think your Robert Nelson show is legendary. Just incredible. So it works, and people come out of the woodworks, but you got to give them a lot of notice. Finally, this whole approach exemplifies professional standards. It really does. Okay. Now, I'll tell you more specifically what this means. Did you know that a satisfied client, what did you guys write down, by the way? A satisfied client will provide, on average, what did you write down? Anyone think it was higher or low? 5 qualified referrals. So when we mail and phone prospects, as well as prior buyers, always remember that, gee, if you don't sell it today, of course, always set up that future appointment down the road, but get a referral from this person. What do you think the likelihood is of a person who's just disappointed you giving you a referral? Is it good or bad? It's good, you know, because they feel apologetic. They can't buy it today, and now they're going to do you a little bit of a favor. Take advantage of it. Why not? It's human nature. And we'll talk about how to ask for the referral in a little bit more detail. Second, a previous buyer is 6 times more likely to buy from you than cold traffic. Did I just reorganize your priorities? I'm telling you, if you're not, in fact, I'll give you some specific statistics you can hang your hat on. If you're not reaping 25% to 1/3 of your gross receipts as an art consultant, and I'll extend that to the gallery, 25 to 30%. If you're not getting at least that kind of repeat business, you are shining off a lot of business. You're just not doing what needs to be done with your direct mail and phone follow-up to get that additional 25 or 30% on up. It just goes up from there, ladies and gentlemen. How about that for a good gauge? The new market, I call it. I'm talking about the people that are out there today that are part of this growing, this art boom. I mean, there's an art boom out there, isn't it? It sure is. In fact, I'm probably not going to say this right, but somewhere recently in the news, they mentioned that something like, 90% of all the artwork ever purchased in the world has been purchased in the last like 15 years, or some incredible amount, sort of like the scientific statistic, something like 95% of all the scientific discoveries have been discovered in the last 20 years, something like that. If you add up all the scientific discoveries in modern times, I mean, isn't that incredible? It's a boom right now. And you know what? These people are different. I don't care if you're talking about wholesale accounts. I don't care if you're talking about us in this room, because I assume all of us have art collections and buy collectibles and art, yes? We are different from a generation ago in terms of our expectations. Isn't that true? Didn't you go into a retail outlet and they ignore you? What do? Especially, in fact, you know, they're saying that there's a real distinction. Either just bargain basement, and so companies like Pay and Save, or let's see on the mainland, what do we call Woolworths, and you know, self-help, if you will, stores are booming, and the top of the line retail outlets are booming that offer extraordinary services. Nordstrom's, I know, is doing real well, and people that know that's what's really needed. And the stuff in the middle is going out. So it's like, if I'm going to pay my hard-earned dollars for something really special, I want to be treated special. That's the message, isn't it? And is art, going into an art gallery, is that a treat or what? I mean, what can that art do for you besides enhance your attractiveness of your home and give you a sense of well-being and all those emotional needs that we need? It sure can't keep your food cold or give you an opportunity to drive to work in it, right? So they expect this service. And lastly, 60 to 65% of the population are deliberators and loyalists. Now let's take a look at both sides of this equation. What is a deliberator?
Somebody that ponders over something.
Say that louder, Marianne.
Someone that ponders over something and
Yes.
takes their time and makes sure that every little thing is perfect about it.
Yes, ma'am. And what is their famous objection? Let's hear it.
Think about it.
I need some time to think about it. But guess what the other side of that equation is? They're loyalists. And what do we say? How do we handle, I need some time to think about it? What do we do? How much time do you need? Fantastic. You're going to be the first sales professional that really appreciated their need to think about it. And now we've got a whole year's worth of stuff we're going to send them and call them about, and we're going to give them that time they need. And you know what we're going to get in return? We're going to get people who are going to make that annual sojourn to their favorite artists each and every year, and every other month or every 6 months or whatever the cycle is for that person. They're going to acquire another piece of artwork from you, because you know what? They're loyalists. They don't want another art gallery. They don't want another art consultant. And so when people laugh when I go, I want to be your art consultant for life, I'm going exactly with the psychology of the majority of the population. Can you see why this stuff works? Isn't that exciting? All right. Well, I mentioned some terminology in the very opening of this sequence that I want to clarify for you as well as our viewing audience. First of all, there are 3 basic types of mail campaigns. And for those of you who like to take notes, you may want to write this down, or I believe actually it's in the workbook, so maybe I should direct you to that. I think it appears on page 217. Thank you, Renee. We'll fill in the pukas later for my viewing audience. Puka in Hawaii means ho. All right. We have what we call a corporate mail campaign. This would be usually generated by the owner of the gallery and or the advertising firm. Now, where someone outside of the firm comes in and creates something really special and provocative. It may be tied around an event, such as the Robert Nelson show that you folks have become famous for, or the Otsuka show, and of course you use your various advertising firms to help you put that together and promote it. It's typically signed by the owner and usually goes out to hordes and hordes of people, everybody on your mailing list, which can be many, many thousands. In this particular case, you, the art consultant, you just simply get your stack that you may want to personalize at the bottom to those 100 or 200 or 500, usually no more than that, that you may do your phoning to. So in the end, the art consultants call a subset of the many, many thousands of people that receive it. Got it? Now, as part of your company strategy, you want to have X number of these pumped out for your team, like clockwork, to give them that opportunity and to play into the psychology of your buyers. Okay? Second, semi-personal mailings. This is typically generated by the art consultant. They may receive approval from the owner. In some cases, art consultants operate so independently, they do these things on their own. But to make them the most effective, meaning efficient and effective, they need to construct it so that it is suitable to go out to at least 25 people. And up to 500 is what I usually say at any one pop, because the idea is to call every single one of those people. Now, what do you do, Valerie, if you got 500 to call? What do you do with your mailing? Do you send out all 500 today and try to call all 500 next week?
No, you send them in segments so that you hit them at certain times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You send them out in batches. And Valerie knows because she just recently did a big mailing and did some phoning. And it doesn't work to send all 500 if you can't really schedule 500 phone calls the following week. And most of us can't do that. So you send out 100 at a time. And then you stagger it. Or only send out 200, for heaven's sakes. And make the most segregate your list so that the 200 that get it are the very best. And if you got 300 others that you think ought to get it, now this is a notion that is going to be fresh and new for some of you. Take those 300 and share them with a new art consultant. And say, I tell you what, you call these folks and we'll do a little role playing so you don't burn up any of my territory. And I'll split some of that with you, okay? And you work out an arrangement that makes sense. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement, yes? Any of you here ever done that or been the beneficiary? So it works beautifully. Yeah? Beg your pardon? Say that louder, Carol, so the viewing audience. Hire a secretary, absolutely. And if you don't think I've got art consultants, my senior people are really cooking at a high level, don't have assistants and computers and everything else, I want you to think again. Because, boy, I tell you, to achieve those six-figure incomes and to maintain it, you'd best need some help, and it's worth it. The whole concept is leverage. Okay, last but not least, we're looking at personal communiques. And those are perhaps the most self-explanatory, but I'm going to give you an interesting concept. A personal communique, in my mind, can be 1, how about that, to 25. Does that click for any of you? How can you send out a personal communique to 25 people? Does that click? What do I mean by that, Rose?
It's a personal note, but, I mean, it's a personal format, but yet it's adaptable for many people.
Yes, and the real key is it has the look and feel of a personal communique, meaning that it may be handwritten, in particular, hand addressed, hand stamped, and all that good stuff. In fact, to the extent you do your semi-personal communiques that way, it's even more powerful with the hand addressed and the hand stamped look, because at least they open it. Now, let me give you a footnote on that as we talk about it. Studies have shown that odd-sized envelopes that are hand addressed and hand stamped, or at least have the appearance of hand stamped, will always be opened, let's hear it, first. And the higher the stature of the person, the greater the net worth, the more important that you do these things. Okay?
Odd-sized envelopes.
Yes, ma'am. Odd-sized envelopes, yes. And if you can't, how much time does it take to hand address 500 envelopes? Forever. You can. That's right. Carol knows the concept of leverage. Boy, I tell you, if you don't know a teenager that's 13 or 14 years old that has decent handwriting that wouldn't work for $2 an hour, then I want you to go out in your neighborhood and knock on some doors. There's those young people out there, and you know what else? You talk about a mutual thing. You're helping these young people to learn some valuable lessons, too. I mean, it's good for them, too. And if you don't think I do that, you ask my stepkids how many envelopes they've addressed in the last 10 years. So I'm real serious. All right. And, of course, with the personal communiques, the art consultant calls all of them. All right. Well, does that help to kind of distinguish for yourself what you're doing, when you're doing it? I hope so, and I think for our viewing audience especially. All right, a couple of other things. These are the common threads. Remember I promised you the common threads? We had some letters that we shared, and I made just a few minor comments as you were reading them to the entire group. But this is what the ingredients are, ladies and gentlemen, and you won't go wrong. Number one, a direct mail of 500 or less, which is pretty much the case for all of us here in the room. Feature a focused promotion. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you the number of letters that go out that just fall on deaf ears because there is nothing, there's no focus. It's in on a batch of photographs. A letter just says, you know, or how about this? These letters, I get them all the time. I'm on everybody's mailing list, you know, in galleries and what have you. And they say things like, well, so-and-so's having a one-man show, you're invited. And there'll be, you know, hors d'oeuvres. It's like, wow, that's exciting. Versus, when was the last time you've been to Paris? Paris in Lahaina town? Think of it. And let me tell you something, if you promise people Paris in Lahaina town, you'd best spend some money creating a setting that gives a feel of Paris. I know Lahaina Galleries did a thing, it was so cute. Michael Azevedo, the general manager of Lahaina Galleries, who also wrote the foreword to my book, one of my great supporters, they did a theme around an artist called Guy Buffet. How many of you are familiar with Guy Buffet? He did the zoo fence and all of that. Anyway, they decided to make a cafe appearance in all the galleries. And some of you in Lahaina may remember this. And they did some real simple things. They got the circular tables with the red and white patterned tablecloths, you know, those simple ones that you see in Paris a lot, and the little chairs. And they put, you know, the old wine bottle with the candle that was melted down partially. Well, you know what? It was so provocative that people walked in and sat down and asked for the menu. And yeah, I think that's great. In other words, to really create, put some energy and imagination into creating something special. And I know Carol has done a lot of work on that. That really makes a difference, doesn't it? And mainly because people look forward to coming to something that is new and different. Not just to come and as soon as they walk across the threshold, just basically get bombarded with qualifying and sales questions. Isn't that true? Think about it. So it has to have a focused promotion. And that's true whether it's an event or simply a direct mail piece. It should have an expiration date. I can't tell you a number of things I get in the mail, and there's no expiration date. It's like, well, this goes on forever, I guess. So therefore, I don't really have to think about it now, because it's going to be on forever. There should be a hook, something exciting, an opportunity to save money, a pre-pub, in other words. Maybe put things together in some kind of ensemble or a suite. And if you buy all 10 or buy all 4, you get a savings. As long as you pay in full by a certain date. If they're deliverable, if they're not deliverable, make the appropriate deposit. And it should have something, we're in a visual industry. Boy, if it doesn't have a photo or brochure, we're not communicating. You know, I've seen things go out that did not have photos and brochures, I want you to know. I said, wow, I guess I'm supposed to imagine what the artwork looks like. They sent me a map so I can get to the gallery, but I don't even know why I'm going. Must be followed by a phone call if you want some success. Must be prefaced by obtaining, I know that's misspelled, obtaining permission to call. Remember we talked about that? If you don't have that permission to call, then you lose 90% of the power and punch of the phone call. Offering alternative work is needed. It's sort of like when you walk into the gallery and you say, that's a beautiful piece, isn't it? And they go, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Well, that's going to happen on the phone too. And what do you say to redirect? First of all, you say, fantastic. I don't know why I sent you that in the first place. What was I thinking? Of course you don't like that piece. As a matter of fact, I have another piece right here by such and such artist I really intended to send you all along. In fact, and you might do a Ruth number. You say, you know, you may not even need to look at it. As a matter of fact, you trust me, don't you? Let me describe it to you, except Ruth even sold a piece that she had never seen before. So that was really a coup. But basically, to have something else that you can introduce immediately and without skipping a beat. And in fact, those of us who are really good at this, I'll share with you. They have the photo right there. They have their worksheets, you know, just like I described, the letter that went out and so on. And then as they're talking, and they get, of course, one of these people that needs an alternative work, you say, well, great, well, I happen to have this piece by such and such artist. And they're writing a little personal note on a little piece of paper. It says, thank you for your time. I'll call you next time, next week, same time, same place. Here's the photo, I promise. And when they hang up the phone, it's already folded, addressed, and stamped. Are you with me? And that's the folks who are really getting a groove with this. Or they have the next event coming up. They have the invitations, or whatever it is coming next. And 5, obtain permission to recontact yet again, which I just illustrated. Got it? And of course, if you don't sell anything, at the very least, get a few referrals. All right. Well, if you follow these techniques faithfully, I will guarantee you these kind of results. Instead of 0.5 to 1.5% return on direct mail with no phone follow-up, you can expect 2 to 10% and through the roof from there. 20, 30, 40, 50% return with direct mail and phone together. Isn't that exciting? I'm excited. All right. Well, one of the things that's going to be valuable for all of you that I want to share with you, and this is our viewing audience as well, is that in order to do all of this effectively, you're going to need an organizer. And remember I talked about filling your toolbox? I know we have a number of people here who already use my organizer. How's it working, by the way? Great. And you don't know how you live without it, right? I tell you. For those of you who haven't taken advantage of it yet, you'll want to, because it has been specially designed for our consultants. And any organizer will do, but let me just share with you what you want to look for. It should have a 13-month rolling calendar. What does that mean? You can make appointments out 13 months. And it's right there at your fingertips. It should have macro to micro goal setting and monitoring sheets, meaning the big picture, your 10-year goals, your annual goals, down to today, this hour. It should allow straightforward client contacts. You know where everything is, and it's all cross-referenced so that there's no double entries. It should eliminate your need to remember details. It's all right there. And by the way, when is the best time to fill out your client service record? Say that louder, Renee. Right after a sale, or the interaction if you didn't make that sale today. Because remember our exercise on listening, which our viewing audience didn't get a chance to participate in, but we did an exercise on listening. What is the average person's retention ability? 11%. And guess what? That includes us. If they just told us their profession, if they just told us what their home looked like, if they just told us their travel plans as well as their travel history and on, what is the likelihood of us remembering all those details a month from now? 0. So you'd best write it down. Has detailed and easily accessible client information. Like I say, all cross-referenced, no double entries. And the organizer we put together does all of these things and more. All right. Well, at this point, I'd like to say thank you to our viewing audience. We are going to break at this time, and actually we're going to see you in the morning, but you won't realize that. But we're going to end out our day, and we'll be right back. Well, welcome back out there in TV land. I tell you, so much has happened since you were gone. But in any event, we are back together. Of course, here at the beautiful Hyatt Regency in Waikiki. And we've had so much discussion. We talked about corporate art sales, and we have a separate video that you may want to get on that. And at this point, we're going to move along with the people we have in the room and with you as well on the last and final portion of the program, which I call Build Passion with Romance. Now, if you want that in English, that is how to create an effective sales presentation. And this does not lend itself, of course, to any one-liners. It's the kind of thing that you have to look at separately and put it into the proper context, whether you're talking on the telephone, whether you are speaking to someone at an appointment on location, or whether, in fact, you are right there in the gallery in the demo room. What do you say? Recognizing that the more time you spend, the more results you will achieve with a client. The question really becomes is, how do you spend that time? In fact, what was our corollary that we talked about yesterday along these same lines? Does anyone remember? What's the corollary to this? If people will not spend time with you, they won't spend money with you. All right? So when we think about this whole concept, by the way, time is a valuable resource, and when you really get down to it, it's the most valuable resource of them all. Isn't that true? What did Queen Elizabeth I say in her dying deathbed? And I think it was 1592, and you historians out there, you're going to write me. Is that what she said? That's not what she said. He said, I don't want to die a virgin. But this is what the historians have told us. Queen Elizabeth on her deathbed in late 1500s said, all of my possessions for a single moment in time. And to the extent that we are sensitive to that set of values for ourselves, firstly, then we will always be on target in terms of efficiency and effectiveness with our clients. And the higher the stature or perceived stature, the higher the net worth, the more important it is for you to make the most of that time with an individual. So what do you say during that time period? What do you do? Well, perhaps I can give you a bit of a structure. In your sales presentation, you want to think about a number of things. I'm going to give you an analytical framework. For those of you who have the workbooks on 3-1, maybe I can even help define these things in both places. First, all of us have a need when we acquire art. It's very different for different people, yes? And if you're a corporate art buyer or a purchasing agent or versus a personal collector at different levels, you're just beginning versus having done it for many, many years, those needs can be very different. The kind of factual information or data that you would want to share with that person depends a lot on what you would discovered from that person when you qualified them in the first place. Because really when you qualified them, one of the things you were getting at is what their perceived needs were. Whether it related to art directly or not, yes? If you ask a person in your course of conversation something like, well, Mrs. Wright, gee, I can't believe it, we've spent an hour together here, and it seems like you really value your family. Is that how you feel? Oh, yes, my family is my most important thing. And you've shared with me all kinds of wonderful things about your daughter, and your son is in college, and so on. You know, as we talk about this work of art by Hisashi Otsuka, one of the things you perhaps want to consider is that he is steeped in tradition, just like you are. And that's really important to you, isn't it? And the reason I mention that is because you've talked so much about your roots and how these things are really important to you. And the bottom line is this beautiful work of art is going to help you establish some family traditions that will live on well beyond this work of art itself. In fact, this piece is going to become a future family heirloom. Now, what does that have to do with the work of art specifically? Anything? It has mostly to do with where that person is coming from and what they value. Isn't that true? You see the difference? So, whenever you qualify people and get this whole dossier of information about who they are and where they're coming from, you've got to come back and incorporate that in your sales presentation. In fact, I have some examples, but first let's make sure we understand what the components are. By the way, as I talk about this, don't misunderstand, particularly my viewing audience out there. I'm not saying that every time you're talking with a person, you go, all right, I gotta say a need and repeat that back, and then I gotta say a fact, then I gotta do an advantage, and then I gotta make sure I give them a little sizzle. Rather, you have to do some evaluation analysis of what you have stored in your data banks. And by the way, some of us are going to find that there are some pukas out there. Isn't that true? Especially some of us art consultants have a myriad of artists we have to represent, and we don't get quite around to studying up on a lot of the factual information that we need to throw out in order to substantiate the emotional sizzle in a sufficient, important way. Yes? Is that a fair statement? Let's be honest. Yes. So one of the things you want to do, and in my workbook and in my published volume, I have a couple of examples of our featured artists that we've talked about yesterday and today. Hisashi Otsuka and Andrea Smith. Some very, very basic thumbnail information that you need in order to key off of as you develop and tie in all the emotional sizzle. So once you have that information available, first of all, and by the way, for those of you who have emerging artists, you may have to develop that information so that it's available for you. You may have to call the artist and say, who are your collectors? What are your credentials? You just don't hang up a pretty picture. Or of course we say a pretty painting, but we don't hang up a pretty picture and say it sells itself. We call the artist and get that information. Having done so, we do a bit of analysis and say, all right, what are the facts? What are the bridges I can build for my client so they can see why I want to stress those facts for them? And finally, how do I give them exciting reasons that are specifically for them so that they get excited and decide to go ahead and get it? So, a fact is data, statistics, or circumstantial opinion. You may want to write that down. Data, statistics, and or circumstantial opinion. I'm going to lose my earring. An advantage is the reason you mention the fact in many cases. It often draws a comparison or provides a rationale. And lastly, the emotional sizzle. That's the easy part, isn't it? What's the emotional sizzle? Does it have anything to do with the art piece directly necessarily? It certainly may not. It may, of course, but it certainly may not. It has more to do, I'm going to give you a key word, it's more to do with values, emotional values that the person holds. A person values prestige, for example. A person values traditions, for example. A person values fun, for example. In fact, I really got in touch with this most recently by reading the book I mentioned yesterday, Unlimited Power by Anthony Robbins. He has a real simple exercise where he has about 10 attributes, 10 values that you rank. That I thought, well, gee, this is really simple. Sure, I'll take a few seconds and go through this. But I have to tell you, I shared this with my husband, and I asked him to do the same thing. And it was a real mind opener, or mind blower. It was like, well, no wonder we have certain disagreements, because some of the stuff that I had at the bottom of my list was at the top of his, and vice versa. And some of these things you really take for granted in your relationships, and of course spills over into every important decision that you make. Isn't that something? But I'll give you an example. In one of my top 3, it had values like fun, prestige. In this case, it was focusing on relationships in particular. So it had things like ease of communication, love, affection, things like that. And it was interesting that one of my top 3, believe it or not, was fun. Believe it or not, that might seem a little odd, but I have a real high need to have enjoyment in my life with all of my relationships. So therefore, I tell you what this translates into if you were trying to sell something to me. if you are overly serious in your demeanor, I'm going to show you how I'm not going to be attracted to you to do business with you. And you're going to have to work twice as hard. And even so, you may not get my business because I have such a high need to seek and put fun into my life. In fact, if you come and look at my art collection, it spells, it says joy, it says fun, it says excitement. It doesn't say sit back and reflect on confusion and chaos like certain contemporary artists like to depict. It does not say try to figure this out. It does not say, are you with me? In other words, what you value is basically the kind of artwork that you're going to be attracted to in your life and the kind of person you want to do business with. Isn't that interesting? I tell you, it's so profound. Let me make sure that we are real clear again on why I'm defining these things. You sort it out, given the thumbnail information on your artists and the artwork you represent. You go through and make sure you understand what facts you have available to integrate into your sales presentation, what the bridges are, what the emotional sizzle is, the full repertoire of what those might be, and then store it away. And now, when you go to access it, it would be dependent upon, of course, who you're speaking to. And you pull it out in a very conscious way versus random. You know how if you fake it till you make it works as long as you do your homework. Fake it till you make it does not mean shooting from the hip until you get with the program. Okay? And I can't encourage you folks enough to do that. In fact, I know Andrew Fisher is here from Images International, Vice President of Marketing and Sales. And I think one of the things that he has done so well is to help his people over a period of time get a real sense of a lot of information and that full repertoire of what tugs at the heartstrings of their market. I've been in many of their sales meetings, and they spend an incredible amount of time. And we have a few Images people here, isn't that true? Incredible amount of time talking about the background and the history and symbolism and all the components that you need to bring to bear to make an effective sales presentation. And when I contrast that to a lot of other sales meetings, what do they end up being more like?
Business.
Announcements. How about this? Group reprimands. You guys have stopped. You need to dust those frames. Right? Okay. Not enough attention is paid to this to give the art consultants that arsenal of information that they can pull from. All right, let me give you a few examples out there. If you turn to, I have a worksheet, by the way. I'm not going to go through this now. This is really in here for you to take back with you. And whenever you have your next promotion, your next show, your next release, or whatever it is, you use that and do it in your own sales meeting teams. And you're going to be amazed, by the way, at the kind of brainstorming you can do to fill up your toolbox for your sales presentation. But I do have some examples on 3-3. I don't use the Otsuka one. I think there's one in here. Otsuka uses long-lasting materials, kimono inks on fabric, for example. And I know that's important to you, Mr. Wright, isn't it? Well, yes, it is. His paintings will last forever, or at least longer than our children or our children's children. And you know, I tell you, when you're trying to create a family tradition, that has got to be an important component of your art acquisition decision. And so, sir, bottom line is, this painting is destined to become a future family heirloom. You know, that's what you're really looking for, isn't it? Yes, it is. See how that works? Okay. The other thing I want to share with you is the key categories that you want to fill up your data banks with. So you want to think of statements like that that have been pre-sorted out, that are filed. So if you think about style and technique, which is the example I just gave, and just cards, stacks of index cards that go back from this frontish piece that are stored in your biocomputer, that you can access given who you're talking to and what you're trying to accomplish with those statements. Background and credentials, the same kind of thing. Appreciation history, the same kind of thing. Major awards and collectors. And if you do that homework ahead of time, whoever's presented to you, you will know exactly how to help them with their buying decisions. Does that help? And by the way, these examples I had in here that I thought you could kind of review on your own. Example of an appreciation history one is real simple. Otsuka has a successful track record in terms of appreciation. And you can be specific if you want. You never want to talk about the future, by the way, just a footnote, because then you get into trouble about quote-unquote investments and promises you don't want to make, because nobody has a crystal ball. But you can always talk about history pretty safely with people. You might say an artist has appreciated 15 times over the last decade. Does that sound familiar from yesterday? And that would be the fact. You can acquire Andrea Smith in this case, and be assured that you're acquiring this artist in the right neighborhood, just like you acquire your primary residence in the right neighborhood. It's solid. Person has already arrived. And bottom line, Mr. Wright, what that means for you is that you can have peace of mind, that you're making a solid decision. Now, is peace of mind a value that doesn't have anything to do with art per se, does it? But factors in to that individual's decision. Peace of mind. And you know, when you use these words, remember yesterday George was commenting at lunch about how I mirror back with any objection. You know, that's too bold, strong, overpowering, and I'd say back, well, that's why you're attracted to it in the first place, isn't it? This same power is there with this technique. If in your qualifying you find out that the person really values whatever it is, fun, tradition, whatever it is, and you parrot that back to them, it's like, whew, it's music to their ears. It really is. All right. The other thing I want to share with you is, remember I mentioned the People article? You remember that? You guys have got to read this. You will just faint like the lady here when you see this. It's, are you zeroing in on that, Patrick? Okay. This was in the, let's see, People magazine, July 17th, 1989. And what it says is that basically people get so overwhelmed when they look at certain fine art pieces in the various museums around Europe that they literally go into a faint. Can you believe that? Hard to imagine, isn't it? Andrew's going, no, I can't believe that. But I'm going to consider this the case of Franz. This is a real person, a middle-aged engineer from Bavaria. While he was gazing at a piece by, let's see, Caravaggio, Bacchus, maybe Martin knows this, in the Uffizi Museum in Florence, Franz began to experience, you're going to laugh at this is X-rated, and his case history describes an attraction closer and closer to an intimate sexual arousal of ambiguous nature that invaded him and made him feel good and bad. Naturally, his head started to pound, and Franz felt faint. He was only the latest victim of what they're calling the Stendhal syndrome. Now, what this is... Did I say that correctly? Stendhal syndrome. Now, what they're really saying here, ladies and gentlemen, some people are so sensitive for whatever reason that with certain fine art can be so provocative for them, they become so empathetic with what's going on in the painting that they are affected physically. And if you don't think that is going on with a lot of the people you have in the dimmer room at a lesser, perhaps, degree, then I want you to think again. How many of you had people just react strongly? Yes, Gail?
If you're just getting goosebumps because that's a reaction.
Absolutely. Kevin?
Had a lady just walk out of the gallery in tears.
Yes.
Simply over a ceramic vase. It was just amazing.
Yes. The lady walked out of the gallery in tears. She was just shaking. Goose pimples, or what we call chicken skin in Hawaii, Gail was mentioning. That's a physical reaction, isn't it? And the thing that you have to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, is you have the power with the person in that state, utilizing these techniques of embellishing and helping them to tie into their value system to take them all the way. I mean, they're ready. Talk about ready to buy. My God, you can sell them just about anything, and they'll be thanking you and tearful. And in fact, Gary Smith, one of my favorite people that I like to share with my audiences about, he told me of a story, I guess about last year, of a woman who came in, and she was so excited about 5 Andrea Smiths that she had just acquired. She was crying as she was writing the check, saying that this was more moving for her than when she got her Jaguar. And you know how moving it can be to get a Jaguar, let me tell you. True story. Gary Smith. So it is true. And the thing you have to realize and appreciate is you have the power to direct that movie. Because to the extent that you don't, they will literally walk out of that gallery, be all in that physiology. I mean, they feel it in their bones, literally, ripe and ready, go to another gallery and are receptive and warmed up. You've done all the warming up, and they sit down and they're ready. They've been ready to buy anyway. You just didn't continue with it. And then they buy somewhere else with someone who knows how to key into that. All right. Well, you think this is going to be helpful? Yeah. Have I gotten you folks interested in going back and really studying up some of that information? And just for purposes of clarity, like I said, I have 2 artist tutorials in here by way of example, and wherever you are in developing your gallery or corporate art division, you want to have this thumbnail available, a thumbnail of the artist's philosophy. And I usually write it in first person, so it really gives you the sense that you're in their head, their style, as you want the various people who represent you to articulate it in a consistent professional manner, the techniques that are used, again, for the same reasons, the appreciation history that can be documented according to your actual records. They're collectors. So all of this is here. I know Patrick's trying to zero in on that. Can you get it, dear?
I got it.
Okay, and I'm going to turn the page to a thumbnail from birth to current of the artist. This is very short. And by the way, if you have any more than 5 or 10 artists, this is about all you can handle, isn't it? To get primed for a show or a phone campaign, this is all you can handle, and this is all you really need. And yet, I can't tell you the stuff that the art galleries sometimes have available. And then on 3.7, I have what I call the sizzle. If you don't talk to the people who have acquired the artwork, if you don't talk to the artist who has perhaps been selling his own work for a while and ask him, why do people acquire your work, and get a sensitivity for what has happened in the past, you're missing a beat. Arm your art consultants and yourself, if you're the art consultant, with why people buy it in the first place. If you have some sense of the history, it'll be easier for you to get a sense of how to help people make those decisions now. And last but not least, I've got objections. If you've heard those objections before, give your team or yourself. Remember we did a lot of anticipation on objections yesterday? So when people come out and say to a particular artist, it's too bold, strong, or overpowering, I'm really glad you shared that with me. Versus, why are they saying this and what do I say now? If you've heard it all before, think about it ahead of time as far as a response, and you'll be able to respond to it a lot more effectively. Well, that's the tutorial, and I'd like to just wrap up with our viewing audience and the people here by just simply saying that, gee, we got to do this for the viewing audience. How's it been so far, ladies and gentlemen? Wonderful! Fantastic! Absolutely! And you know what? To accomplish great things, we must not only act, but also dream. Boy, if you don't have those visions for yourself, all bets are off. Not only plan, Remember we talked about planning and that the results of that Yale study and how the 3% after 25 years had the combined fortunes of all the 97% combined? Isn't that incredible? But the bottom line, we sort of end where we started. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't believe it, nobody else will. So it all starts with belief, doesn't it? With that, I'd just like to say thank you so much to our viewing audience and all of you here, many of whom have traveled from long distances, Colorado, the neighbor islands. It's been a pleasure, and gee, we'll see you next year, or some of you next week, I suppose, and the rest of you, hopefully, in our program next year. Thank you so much. Hi, how are you folks today? You know, if it looks like Christmas behind me, that's on purpose. If it looks like it's Christmas in Hawaii, that's on purpose too. We got some beautiful flowers here and lights in the back, and that's because we want to give you the feeling that it's time to treat yourself. It's time to give yourself some presents that will last a lifetime. Every minute that you are in your professional life, we've developed some tools that can really make a difference in your effectiveness and your efficiency. So I'd like to just introduce those to you and share with you how you can take advantage of those products. So bear with me for just a few minutes and we'll kind of go through them. First of all, I have our organizer, which has been specially designed for our consultants who need to track 200 to 400 clients in an easily accessible way. It has everything from, oh my gosh, the 13-month rolling calendar, all the way to cross-referencing by collectors and interests. You can even cross-code it based on their ability to spend, how qualified they are. Think about how efficient that's going to make you. The other thing I want to share with you is the published volume, which has already become a bestseller, and my publisher tells me it's time to go at it again, Zell. I need to do a revised edition. Well, go ahead and get this now, because it might be a while before I can get to work on that other one. It is, of course, entitled The Art of Selling Art, and we have gotten so much feedback that says, Zella, this has helped me tremendously. So please take advantage of that. Even people who have come to our seminars have told us that it is a tremendous resource after the fact to reinforce and also to help with retention. The third product I'd like to share with you is our Productive Gallery Manual. And really, I like to call this my personnel manual for art galleries. It will assist you in everything from creating policies that make sense for your team, all the way to instituting professional management standards, such as how to conduct an appropriate evaluation or appraisal of some of your employees and staff members. An excellent guide and very, very complete. The other thing I'd like to share with you is, of course, our 2-set program available on our video set. It's a complete abbreviated program that will allow you the opportunity to review not only the content of what I like to share with my clients, but also how I express it, because that makes a lot of difference, doesn't it? You have 2 sets. Each one is the new revised set, as a matter of fact, is about 1 hour and 15 minutes each, and you can break them up and use them in your sales meetings, for example. Or if you're an art consultant on your own, you can review it in the morning and get charged up for the day. And if you think that's far-fetched, we had a story today in our seminar where a woman did just that the other day and went in the very next morning and sold $11,000 worth of artwork. An enormous amount for her because she had been in a slump. I mean, just instant results. The other thing I'd like to share with you is our newsletter subscription. We publish this quarterly. And as it turns out, it's very comprehensive and done on high-quality paper, with a lot of visuals, try to keep it interesting for you, as well as up-to-the-minute things that are happening in the industry, plus some personal glimpses from, as far as feedback from me that I like to share with you that I get from the industry as a whole. Finally, I'm going to share with you our order form, which makes it easy to get these products. First of all, you can find us at the LA Expo. You can find us in the phone book, Nova Search Consultants in Hawaii at 538-3907. And of course, anytime you order something from us, we will be in contact with you and sending out one of these forms with everything you acquire from us, so it makes it easy for you to get something else. Well, I hope this quick overview has inspired you to treat yourself, because it's time to give yourself the gift that will last a lifetime and make your professional life more rewarding and yourself more successful. Thank you and aloha.